そうだね。
Ed, you are not Japanese. You observe Japanese, no market growth overseas. How do you feel? What's your opinion? What's your suggestion?
Well, okay, I don't work for a purely Japanese company, and this company is supposed to be a global company, and I already noticed that it's very difficult for the Japanese office to work together with the global.
Yeah, I know that. So
colleagues.
what we should do? What kind of concern we should have at your aspect? At your aspects?
Well, I think one of the major things is that a shift in mindset where you basically focus. Everybody thinks about, okay, what are the opportunities here and what is best for the company as a whole. I find that this is a problem that exists in many different layers. It has to do with consensus politics. It has to do with
consensus politics. Consensus politics.
Consensus politics, yeah. I think that's actually consensus politics leads us to actually spending a lot of time communicating with your peers. That's basically we in the Netherlands we call it navel staring. It's basically looking at yourself, at your own belly, communicating and finding consensus.
They don't.
And it's basically it leads to conservative decision making. It leads to actually limited leadership opportunities, and that's actually where what I think is needed, because you need to have a few people who are actually looking at the bigger picture, who do not need to worry too much about creating consensus, but who can create a goal, who can basically point to a goal and make sure that people are going in a certain direction. What I see is that this consensus thinking is very much leading to conservatism, and it kills creativeness. Creativity, and it's focused on maintaining stability.
What do you mean maintain stability?
Not going out of your way, doing the conservative thing, doing the right thing, so that basically, because you are part of a collective, everybody needs to contribute. So it's better not to be wrong than to be right. So people do not feel it's actually, even if you sometimes there's a tendency among Western employees, I think, to say, okay, well, I want to make this decision because it's best for the company. Let's go this way. It doesn't work that way in Japan. It's not even appreciated if I choose to take more risk. Basically, I need to go back.
You mean the Japanese not challenging?
Not
challenging.
No, well, they're challenging in their own way, but basically they're challenging to provide the perfect solution for their client. And the interpretation of the perfect solution is actually their own interpretation of the perfect solution. So they're challenging. They're doing their best. They're working hard. They're making the best of the situation. But they're not going out of their way. They choose to focus on the clients that they have instead of thinking about reaching new clients.
It means they don't want to try to reach out unknown area, unknown people.
Right. I mean, I cannot really say this, but from my experience, if I look at the company that I'm working in terms of communication, I think 80% of our communication is internal, 20% external.
Exactly. I agree with you. This is very difficult to expect what is the problem, but you say Japanese talking about among their colleagues, among their,
Yes.
the members instead of outside people.
Right.
Try not to communicate with unknown people and try to challenge new issues, new things, right?
Yes.
Exactly, I agree with you. Recently, I experienced that kind of things, new potential market I find out, but my client are reluctant to doing that business new area.
Right.
They hesitate to take risk. That is true. So how are we going to make breakthrough the kind of barriers to increase our like a market opportunity? How are we going to do that?
Well, I really think that basically we need to start thinking about embracing the value of leadership.
What do you mean value of leadership? Embracing
Well,
value of leadership.
basically let our leaders create a strategy and guide us in the right direction, and not having to create consensus among everybody. Basically, let leaders lead.
What do you mean? Go outside? Or they
Well,
need to change
I
the
think-
performance measurement?
Right. If you look at a Western organization, they pay their leaders to actually think about long-term strategy, to think about, okay, this is where we need to be, and they are not paying their leaders to create consensus with the people below them, and the people below that, and the people below that, because by that time, everything will be diluted and no strategic decision will be made. So instead of going the Japanese way, which is actually working together and improving, and as you go a little bit to the left and to the right, but basically you look at what you have and then you look at, okay, how can I make this better, right? That's the Japanese way, and that's part of the result of consensus thinking. But if you look at a Western organization, there are leaders there. They don't focus on what we're doing right now. I mean, that's operations basically, but most of those people are worried about what are we going to do in 10 years? What are we going to do in 20 years? How are we going to make sure that we're still relevant? And that is not based on what we do today, but basically what is the need for tomorrow and how can we play a role in that? So the basic thought starts from, instead of from today where we are now and then for the next quarter or fiscal year, but the premise is, okay, how are we still relevant in 2040?
What do you mean 2040?
In 2040, what is our company doing? And if we know that, where do we need to invest in? Which markets do we need to be? How are we going to prepare for that to happen? Where are we going to recruit? Where are we going to invest? These things, the decisions today will decide whether you will be successful tomorrow. But that's not from year to year. That's basically that you need to think today about what you will be doing in 10 years, 20 years from now.
So it means we need to change performance measurement.
Yes.
It means we need to just only focus 100% for sales growth. Instead of some certain percentage, you need to focus in future.
Right. You actually need to have people who who step out of this whole consensus model and actually don't look at how are we going to do what we do today a little bit better next year, but who are actually going to look at, okay, what are we going to do in 10 years from now or 20 years from now? What are going to be the technologies that will drive us forward? Which kinds of people do we need to invest in? What are we going to do with our corporate culture? How are we going to deal with climate change? How will it affect our business? What kind of decisions do we need to make today in order to be ready for that in 2030, 2040? That kind of strategic leadership, I feel, is less relevant in Japan as it is in overseas companies.
Japanese management kind of sort of thinking what you said. Very few. Very few, right? Almost nobody. They have. They do not have their mind space to consider future investment. Right?
Right.
That is the problem.
Right. That's basically because there is nobody. There seems to be nobody in that organization that has the power, is empowered to make these kinds of decisions, because that's not how it's done. It's the way it's done is that actually with everything you think or do, you need to go back to your staff and discuss and get agreement. And
I understand. Young people can do it. Okay, my example, I tell you. Okay, I have 2 warehouses. Okay, my stuff is in 2 warehouses. I need to clean out one of those. I'm reluctant to clean out one of those for 6 months. This is all getting older. They are not kind of energetic. Do something, but young people can do it. Okay, Takashi, he can spare 1 day a week. He try to focus on future investment. He can do that. But older people, like current Japanese government, they cannot do that. They are very difficult to move quickly. Even if they understand this is the right direction, but they do not. Right?
Right.
And the economy and the management get older, and the company will not activate. I understand what you mean. They mentally understand, but they cannot take action. Right?
Right. I think so. It's not part of the culture, of the business culture here.
Getting older, they reluctant to taking action.
Right. And in the old days, in the post-World War II days, basically they were catching up, right? They were catching up with Western industry, and they did that very successfully. But the objective was clear, to be as good, if not better, than Western industries. But they have a very clear example that they could follow and copy and make better and actually become very competitive that way. But that's not how today's Japan situation anymore. Today we are among the leaders, so we will actually have to decide ourselves where we are going. So we need to actually be able to have people who have a vision and who are actually capable of guiding companies into that direction. And that's why I think Japan is not growing, because basically we don't have any examples anymore. We now need to figure it out ourselves.
So Japanese economy getting older, right?
Right.
So I understand. I agree with you. This is the current Japanese problem.
Right. But it's a very deep-rooted problem, because it's actually part of the Japanese society.
Not easy to solve.
It has to do with the way that society is organized. It has to do with ambiguity. It has to do with, basically holistic thinking, lack of hierarchy. That culture is very good for some things, but not so good. In this situation, it's very challenged.
Also, very much stabilized already. Everything, society, economy, very stabilized.
Right.
They don't want to radical challenge.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, basically they achieve their objectives. There is no more poverty. There is stability. It's clean. I'm not even sure whether this is traditional Japanese society. Maybe actually this has changed. I don't know whether today's traditional Japanese society is the same as it was 60, 70 years ago. I'm not sure whether 70 years ago we could get the same level of customer service that we take for granted today.
What do you mean 70 years ago take for granted? What?
Well, actually, so I wonder, my feeling is that since I've been here in Japan, companies are trying even harder to provide customer service, or at least customer value, and even getting more and more out of their way in order to exceed clients' expectations. So there is more and more of a basically slave attitude towards what they believe the customer wants, which is very bad for innovation thinking, because basically if we compare that with innovative thinkers, that I don't know who said it, but it was, I believe the phrase was something like this: if I would have asked, I think maybe Ford said it, but if I would have asked my clients what they wanted, they would have answered me a faster horse.
Fast horse? What?
A faster horse. So basically clients, they think what they have and they think about features that they want to improve. But what Ford did, he invented the car, and they invented something completely new. So it takes somebody who has a unique approach and a unique way of thinking, an individual way of thinking, who's actually not saying, oh, how can we do things better, but has a unique and critical viewpoint and say, okay, we need to choose a dramatically different approach, and that's how you can create innovative ideas. And just following what your customer wants is basically continuing the traditional way of doing things.
Right. Right.
So it's a very fundamental problem. Problem. I think Japan will stay very stable for a long time because they are who they are. But I see that actually going out and becoming dominant in the world again would be very difficult.
Yeah, recently I tried to find out, I'm advising one company, and I find out some intermediate developing African market. Then suddenly I explained that and the person and network and communication, but my customer, they reluctant to stepping forward because
Really?
because of Africa.
Okay. Well, it's real estate, right?
Yeah.
Well, real estate in Africa, that's a match made in heaven.
Not real estate, it's medicine.
Medicine. Okay.
Very conservative. Just understand what you said. I understand. And many companies, they are very conservative to step in. The area, the person, everything. Or product. They are very skeptical. to jump
And,
in.
there is nobody inside those companies who have been mandated to make these kinds of decisions.
That's right. That it means very difficult to change their current Japanese atmosphere for their growth. Right?
I think so, yeah. I think so, because if you think about it, it's basically a dead-end street, because the Japanese economy is not going to grow much by providing better services at about the same price.
Okay. Now we're going to switch into another issue. Might we get the conclusion and a little bit
Actually, what you may want to consider is actually shut down your video for a second.
What kind of video you want to show?
No. Actually, it's 4:15. Are you okay? Will you be able to still save it?
Yeah. What do you want to do? This is a kind of Japanese, stand still of the growth of Japanese country is very difficult to step in more forward. We don't have any more further consideration to take, so we need to change an issue for discussion.
Right. Yeah. So the only thing is, what can we do? But change corporate culture.
Oh, more difficult.
Well, yeah, change the society that actually allows for people to think independently and not only focus on equality and consensus.
Difficult. I tried to organize a training session for Japanese company, and if I try to do 10 times, 20 times, it's almost impossible. Try to change their culture. Some people willingly to study it, willingly to step in forward, but cannot get the majority opinion. Majority people are very conservative, no aggressive.
Right, busy with whatever they need to do to get through the day. And that's a lot. I mean, because we're asking a lot from our people.
Yeah, kind of attitude the Chinese company will follow very much. Chinese, they want to make challenge. Chinese company, Chinese people does. Japanese do not. This is kind of culture, because Japanese many years very stable, right? No growth. They satisfy the current situation.
Yeah.
They don't think they need to more big jump or something. Not like a Singaporean or Hong Kong people.
Yeah, well, exactly. If you make it to the finish line, then you will have a pension. You don't need to worry that much. So that's how it has been for a long time. So can I get a 1 minute break?
Of course, yes.
Yes.
I'm going to switching my video recording.
Okay, 1 second.
Okay. Go ahead.